are in listen-only mode.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is David Gross, and I have the great pleasure to be with Jimmy Lamb this afternoon to talk about a subject that I think all of us can learn more and do better about, and that is, what do I charge? How are you, Jimmy?
I'm doing great, David. Thanks. Nice sunny day here on the coast of North Carolina. 80 degrees outside, so great weather, great subject, great opportunity here.
Well, we're also enjoying just incredibly nice weather, and we should be outdoors doing this, but I do have a window I'm looking out, and it's exceptionally nice.
Yeah, the same here, looking out the window and dreaming of being there. But you know, our focus today is going to be pricing, not on the sunshine, though if we do pricing right, it's going to make for a brighter day for everybody. So to get started here, I want everyone to be aware that we're going to do a lot of things here, okay? And when you start talking about pricing, I mean, pricing can be very involved. And the key for pricing, there's two aspects. Number one, what does it cost to produce something? Because if you don't know what it costs to actually produce an item that you wish to sell, how can you mark it up? I mean, how can you set a sell price to it? Okay, so we're gonna take the first part of the class and we're gonna actually do some math. Okay, good old math, formulas, that kind of stuff, and we're gonna be using a spreadsheet, one that I've developed, and it will be available to you after the event so that you can use it yourself. Now, keep in mind when we're using this that I designed this as an educational tool, so I try to keep it simple, but yet I wanted to make sure it showed everything you really needed to take into account when you're figuring out what it costs to actually produce sublimated products. And then it has areas as we go further through it where you can put in markups and you can take into account credit card percentages and things of that nature. So it's a great tool that I think you're going to find very useful. So we're going to go through that first, and then we're going to talk about things like markups and marketing such that we can raise the perceived value of something, you know, and that helps us to generate better markups. And so we got a lot of information to cover. This will be recorded. You'll be able to see the video later, and you'll be able to download the spreadsheet so that you can work the two together as much as you want in the comfort of your own office or home. So I'm going to switch screens here real quick, and we're going to see a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet come up. And first thing I want to tell you is this definitely is in Microsoft Excel. And if you as a business owner do not know how to use Microsoft Excel, you should learn. This is a fantastic business tool. And I know the first time I turned on Excel, I saw it look like a big piece of graph paper. I said, what the heck do I do with this? But once you really learn how to do it, it's a powerful, powerful program. So as we go through this, this is in Microsoft Excel. For you to be able to download it and use it, you'll need Microsoft Excel. And that means that you can edit it to your heart's content, anything you want to do in here. Now, as we go through, one thing I want you to notice is I do have some color coding in here. When you see numbers in blue, those are numbers that you need to figure out as they apply to your business and plug those in. When you see numbers in green, those numbers are calculated for you with the built-in formulas. And every now and then you'll see a number in red, and that means stop and get your attention, okay? But there's not very many red numbers. There's just a few. So to get started with, and this is the same basis I've used with my businesses over the years. You know, when I first got into business, we had no clue how to price things, and we just randomly came up with numbers, which, you know, was probably not the best way to do it, but that's what we did. And then I had a wise decorator sit down and explain to me, you know, to really take a business approach, and that's what we're doing here. So I'm going to walk you through this, probably kind of fast. Remember, it's being recorded, so you can go back and play with this yourself as you go. Please keep in mind that the numbers you see that I'm using are here for purposes of discussion, okay? You may disagree with some of these numbers. Fine, okay? Put your own numbers in. I'm not trying to establish standards in regards to your business expenses. I've just plugged in numbers to use. You'll notice they're all round numbers, so just keep that in mind as we go through here, okay? All right, first thing I want to do is I want you to figure out, what does it cost to run your business over the course of 1 year? Now, if you haven't been in business a year, you don't know, but you can do some estimations. If you've been in business for at least a year, you should have records where you can kind of look back and see. And so the first part here, what I've done is just create some line items of expense categories that a sublimation business could expect to have. You may have a lot more categories, and that's fine. You can use Excel, add them in. I'm just trying to keep this simple, fits on one screen as we go. You'll notice the F and the V over to the left of the blue. F is fixed because some of your costs are fixed, but you got a lot of them that are variable, which means it could change from month to month or however you pay them. And keep in mind, some things you pay monthly, some you pay quarterly, some you pay annually. I want to get them all into a yearly format. That's why I got that yearly column. Okay, and I realize not everything's a monthly expense, though a lot of them are. I want it in that yearly. So you work whatever you got to do to come up with that yearly total, what you spend in that category. And then down here at the bottom in the green, you see where it added all up. So for this fictitious business that we're discussing here today, if we add up all the perceived expenses that we'd have over the course of 1 year and nothing changed, and it will because you have variable expenses, things fluctuate. Theoretically, the cost to run this business is $62,460. Now, if you're new, that might be scary, okay? But look at one of the things I added in here. Owner's draw, paycheck, your paycheck. You see, most small business owners, when they start out, they don't incorporate in a paycheck. They're just going to take money out of the profit that they hope that they make. But by not putting in a paycheck, you can pretty much guarantee you're probably not going to get a paycheck. Now, just writing it in doesn't mean you'll get it, okay? Because when we look at numbers, we're talking about expense numbers. If you don't have enough sales to cover your expenses, you obviously aren't getting paid. But you'll notice I put in a desired paycheck. And the reason to do that is to get your numbers realistic. You may not make enough in sales initially to pay yourself, okay? But at least you accounted for it in the system that helped you determine what it costs to produce something, and therefore when you actually figure out that cost, you're actually getting paid provided you have enough sales to keep things flowing, okay? So if this bothers you, if this big number scares you because you're new, just don't pay yourself. Put 0 in there and look. You know what? Your overhead changed to $16,000 for the 1 year. It makes you feel better, doesn't it? Except you're not getting paid. So that's why I have that in there, okay? Now, keep in mind that that number right there, $62,460, if I generate in net, not gross, net sales, theoretically, I could pay all my expenses and myself for the course of the year. But with any business, things are fluctuating as we go, okay? So things do change. Just always keep that in mind. This is not carved in stone. It's meant to be flexible for you. Another thing this does is it helps you to establish budgets, something you should be doing as a business, okay? For example, here I have an office phone at $50 a month. Well, if you go back at the end of the month and you spend $100 in your office phone, and that's routinely happening, you need to change that number because it's affecting your cost of operation. So the reality is a nice small business, these things are easy to control. You get bigger, it's a little harder. But, by having these in, these are budgetary numbers, and by staying within that range throughout the year, this number doesn't fluctuate a whole lot, okay? Hopefully you're growing, because as you grow, all your expenses are going to go up. But if you're growing and bringing in more sales, your profits are hopefully going up as well, okay? So that's just a basic introduction to that. So for this basic business, theoretically, it's cost $62,460 to run it over the course of 1 year, provided nothing changed, and it probably does. See how fast I can talk? Well, where do we go with that? That number is too big to work with. So the next thing I want to do is I really want to work down to figure out what does it cost to run your business per hour. That's what I'm trying to go with this, okay? And that's usually pretty easy to do when you have a business that does production, okay? Those numbers work out pretty well for you. So next question I ask you is, what's your operational weeks per year? I put in 48 weeks. That gives you 2 weeks of vacation and 10 business holidays. Maybe you only want to work 40 weeks or 20 weeks or 1 week, whatever. Put it in there. Maybe you work 60 weeks like I do. Put it in there. But with the 48, the math is done for you, and you find out your weekly cost of operation was about $1,300, okay? In a 5-day work week, that's $260 per day. Assuming you're working 8-hour days, it's $32.53 per hour. Now, keep in mind this, too. If you're working 16-hour days, don't put it in there, because ultimately you want to be able to work 8 hours. If you put in 16-hour days because you're working really hard getting your business up and running, then it's going to fudge the numbers such that you always have to work 16 hours per day to be able to make the rest of the numbers, which you're getting ready to see, work out for you. So you put in your desired work, not necessarily what you're really doing, because I know a lot of us are working 60 hours a week, not 40. This is based on a 40-hour work week, okay? Now, this becomes very useful because this is what I've done with my own businesses is I want to know where I'm at. And I know through all my calculations what I'm netting on any given item that I sell. Therefore, if 10 widgets got produced in 1 hour and I was netting $5 per widget, I knew I made $50 in that hour, okay, in net sales, okay. Basically, that's what I got. That's important because I need to know where I'm at. And this is exactly what we do, is we'd add up what we produce every day and we'd say, are we on target for our daily cost? You know, maybe we are, maybe we're not. You know, things fluctuate. That's okay. We're looking at the law of averages. Maybe I didn't get the point every day, but maybe by the end of the week, I still got that number. Okay, so these things help you as a business owner to kind of stay on track. Because the thing about overhead is overhead doesn't go away. Okay, if you don't have sales, all these numbers up top, they're not going to drop off very much. Probably your consumables, things like ink and transfer paper, they're dropping off, okay, because you're not producing. But a whole lot of your other things aren't dropping off. So, you know, no sales doesn't mean your overhead goes away. So it's important to keep track of these kind of numbers, okay? Now, if I have an hourly number, there's a way that we can use this to start figuring out what it costs to produce things in our shop. And then we're going to get a little deeper on that. I'm just giving you kind of the basic overview here first. So let's look at cost of producing products with sublimation. Let's say that we're doing something larger so that we're getting one item on the heat press. Because remember, sometimes we can get 6 items on the heat press. And if you've got a really big heat press, you can get more than that. But, you know, like you're doing coasters, a lot of times you can get, you know, 6 coasters or more depending on the size of your heat press. But what I'm talking about right here, pieces per pressing, we'll start off with one piece. So let's say that we're doing a T-shirt, for example. Probably going to do one at a time. So if we're doing one at a time, your average print and press time is probably about 2 minutes because you got to print out the image and you got to put the shirt under the heat press and you got to put the the paper, transfer paper on there, close it down for a minute. So I'm putting 2 minutes down for my average print press time. Okay, so every 2 minutes I can basically get one item. And how many minutes can I print out of an hour? Please don't put 60 because that's just not realistic. I mean, the reality is there's other things that cause downtime, like going to the bathroom. People forget that. So I decided to use 50 minutes here just for this illustration. So if you have 50 production minutes and it takes you 2 minutes to produce something, then you can get 25 somethings done in a given hour. And because we know our hourly overhead was $32.53, you can see the minimum cost to print and press that item was $1.30. Nowhere in here does it say how much ink was used or square inches or anything else. Here, because you got to remember, it's not just the ink and the transfer paper, it's all these other things that you have to account for when you press something, okay? Because that's all your overhead. You got to pay back that overhead, not just the actual ink that went into it. So it probably came out to about $1.30 here. I'm doing one T-shirt, great. That's pretty cheap, really. Now, that might scare you. You say, well, wait a minute. If I'm doing coasters, you tell me it's going to cost $1.30 to do each coaster because I'm doing one at a time? Well, you know what? With coasters, you know, if you throw 6 under that heat press and you're pressing 6 at a time, remember, you're probably printing out one sheet, so you got one print that has 6 coaster images on there. You go put it in the heat press, you got 6 of them, that's 22 cents. Now you feel better, don't you? Okay? And maybe you could even get 8 coasters under there, and it drops even more. So this starts to illustrate some good production practices about maximizing, you know, the size paper, the heat press, to get as many items through on each pressing. That's the neat thing about this because I can press multiple items at the same time if they're smaller, and of course depending on the size there. Okay, so that's the first aspect of this. Now let's go a little bit deeper. Okay, and you'll notice down here at the bottom I have some tabs. We just finished cost analysis. We're going to the next tab, and they talk to each other. That's the neat thing about spreadsheets. They talk to each other. So let's look at, see, this is more colorful too. Let's look at some other factors. Let's get a little more realistic. I gave you some simple things there, but let's look at a real job, for example. And we're going to throw in a couple other variables here so you can really kind of fine-tune this. So the first thing I want to ask is, what's your average print press time? I'm using 2 minutes. But, you know, I'm a conservative guy, and I call my substrate swap time, which means that, you know, I got to take something that's hot off the heat press, put something new on there. I'm throwing in another 30 seconds right here. You may want to put in more. Okay, but I put in 30 seconds, basically half a minute. And I'm starting off with just one piece per pressing. So maybe it's T-shirts again. Okay, let's say I had a 12-piece job. So we're talking about a real job. Well, here's something that will really eat into your profit that you don't think about. Setup and pre-production time. Because even if you already have the thing set up because you printed it before, you got to get it out of the computer, pull up file on the screen, make sure it's set up for that particular substrate, whatever you're going to do. Then you got to go print it out. So you got to get the thing started up, okay? And I assigned some time. I assigned 15 minutes here, and you can assign anything you want, for my estimated setup and pre-production for a typical job. That's not artwork. If I got to sit down and create a logo, that's a different story, okay? I put in 15 minutes because most of us don't account for our downtime. And that's a very big mistake because we have lots of downtime where we're not pressing. That's part of the job. Therefore, it's a cost of doing the job. Same thing at the backside. Once we finish, I mean, those suckers are hot, okay? You know, unless we dip the mug in the water, you got some hot stuff there. But, you know, you got to package them and put them in a box and put a shipping label on or whatever. So at the end of every job, you have downtime where you're doing what I call post-production. So for this particular job, in addition to production, I'm looking at 15 minutes of setup and 30 minutes of post-production. If you differ numbers, that's fine. You know, put in what you think is right for you. Okay, because I said here, with my extra conservative numbers, it was maybe 2.5 minutes to actually print and press. I also throw in a more. See how conservative I am? I threw in something else called unexpected downtime of about 10%, okay, because I'm just a real conservative guy. I know that you have to take breaks and things like that. And I'm trying to make this as close as I can. Again, that's up to you to what you want to do. So my realistic production time for one print press cycle is 2.8 minutes here. So at 2.8 minutes, now here, because I'm accounting for downtime, I'm actually using a 60-minute window because I'm taking into account a whole bunch of downtime. On the previous page, I was just giving you an overview. Okay, 2.8 minutes. In 1 hour, I should be able to get 21.8 runs. Remember, we're getting one piece per run. So we're going to get 21.8 pieces per hour. I like that, 21.8 per hour. So at the end of the hour, you're partially, you know, sublimating something, but whatever. 21.8 pieces per hour since it's one piece per press. But the total time to do the job was 33 minutes because it's 12 pieces, which didn't take the full hour. But there was also, it was 33 minutes to print and press the job, and then it was 1.3 hours for the total job, okay? 33 minutes to print press, all those 12 items, and then I added in the 15 setup and the 30-minute backside. That came out about 1.3 hours. And you maybe do better than that. That's fine. Put the numbers in as they apply to you, okay? But if it took 1.3 hours to do the job, and there's one of those red numbers, that's just telling you that's our cost per hour we got from the very first page. 32.53, it comes out the total cost to produce the job was 42.29. And now my production cost per piece is $3.52, considerably higher than that $1.24 that we saw on the previous page. But here I'm trying to account for all my downtime. And the reality is, if you spend 15 minutes on the backside instead of 30, that number went down. It's with a spreadsheet, you can see how it instantly changes. So you may feel like, you know what, Jimmy, you got way too much downtime. I can do better. That's fine, okay? Because the idea, though, is you don't want to price every job this way. You want to build a price sheet, so you want to look at averages, and that's what we're doing here. Okay, so let's say this item, let's say it was a shirt, cost you $2.85 to print and press. Let's say I went and paid $5 to buy the blank shirt. Okay, remember when I buy that blank shirt that it has to be shipped to me. You know, when I call up Conde and order that, they don't give you free shipping every day. You know, I don't know why, but they don't. Okay, so you're going to have to pay shipping to get that item to you, and that's part of the cost of the item. We sometimes forget that. So here I just use a number of, say, $9.95 for my 12 shirts, you know, to ship it in. And, you know, the spreadsheet did the numbers for me. The spreadsheet took that shipping and it divided it across those 12 items in this order. And now we realize it cost us $5.83 to get that substrate in our hand, $2.85 to produce it. So my total cost is $8.68. So talking about T-shirts here, $8.68 if the shirt actually, you know, cost that. It's about what it costs to do that printing. And the neat thing with sublimation is a big print, you know, it's time. The time to do a big print is the same as a small print. And you wonder, well, gee, you use more ink on the big print than the small print. Yes, but your ink should not be billed per job. It should be what we're doing per month, because we're also doing sampling. And, you know, I hate this doesn't happen to you, but sometimes we mess things up. So we're actually probably consuming more ink per month than we're actually using in our jobs. And that's why I will never try and charge the ink to the job. I try to look at what's my average ink usage per month, Okay, that was back on that first page talking about the overhead. So here it was $868 to produce. I now threw in a markup of 150%, came out to $21.69. Okay, you can put any percentage of markup you want in there. You want to really do up to 200% there. See, nice thing about spreadsheets, I make a simple change like that, and it automatically updates things for me. So that kind of shows you how to go for what a job really costs from beginning to end, because what I wanted to do was show you that there were other things that cost you money with a job. That downtime costs you money. And that's why we want to account for that, because that's all part of the production process. That's all part of it. Too many times people are so focused on ink cost. How much ink did you use on that coaster? I don't know. But at the end of the day, you find the ink costs are not nearly as big a part of the job as you think time is. And too many business owners that are solo don't even account for their own time. That's sad. Okay, so I want to take you over and show you one more aspect of this. It's pretty easy to use. You should see the embroidery one. That one's a nightmare, okay, because you got a lot more variables. But it's a pretty easy thing to use here. And what I do on my well, actually, I'll show you something else real quick. We'll show you efficiency real quick. This is just to illustrate a point. This one isn't really great scientific-wise. It's just to show you comparisons of how it gets cheaper when you do more pieces, okay? Let's say you had a single heat press and your average job was one piece over the course of one day. And it took 15 minutes to set up and 30 minutes post-production on every job. And that's probably excessive for one piece. I agree, okay? But I'm just comparing apples to apples. And my production time was 2.8 minutes. Remember, we just did that. So it takes 47.8 minutes to do one shirt. That's kind of long. But over an 8-hour day, you would get 10.1 pieces, and that would actually cost you $25.89. Kind of scary, okay? So the reality is if you're slow, it's going to cost you money. But immediately, if your job had 2 shirts, and the reason you see such high numbers on the far side is that setup and post-production time. I don't mean to scare you, but I mean to make you aware of downtime costs you money, okay? If your average job was 2 pieces across the course of one day, it cuts in half what your production cost is. But the reality gets down into this range. Now when I'm doing 12 shirts, you can see it's about $352 each, down where you think it should be. If every job was about 18 shirts, it could drop down to $285. This is just meant to show you that over the course of the day, the more efficient you are, the lower cost it is, because your overhead didn't change per hour. How many pieces you got against that overhead is what's varying. And if you can get rid of some of the variables that account for all that time, your price per piece drops tremendously to where you're really becoming efficient and you're making money. And that's what you want to do, okay? But you always got to be aware of those kind of things. Final thing on here, same thing we just looked at about cost of a job, but what I wanted to do was try and create a page where you could easily put in different quantities, because people want quantity pricing. And yes, it's cheaper to do more of the same thing over and over again than it is to do onesies and twosies. It definitely is. This will actually prove that, because you get more efficient with your time. This is not a retail thing that you hand a customer. This is a calculator that you use to help calculate numbers that you can plug into your own price sheet, okay? Nothing different here than what we've been looking at, except that I'm looking at multiple quantities. Here I have 1 to 11, 12 to 23. You use whatever you want. 24, 47. You see how that works on the top columns. Now, down here, when I start calculating this out, it costs a different amount to do one piece than 11 pieces, okay, significantly. I use the midpoint, 1 to 11, of 6 for my calculation for that range. The reality is you probably should have a 1 to 5 piece price and maybe a 6 to 11 piece price, okay, because there's a lot of difference in that small range. As you get into bigger ranges of quantity, your variables shrink tremendously, okay? Use what you think works for you. Put in what you think is your right pre-production time on an average job, post-production on an average job. You do that based on you, okay? Everything else is the same that we were just looking at. Here's our cost per hour. Here's our cost per piece. But you can see how it's dramatically going down with the different quantities, okay? As you're doing more of the same thing over and over, it definitely is getting cheaper, okay? I'm not going to walk you through the whole sheet. You've already seen everything that's going on here. But I added in a couple of other things I wanted you to see at the bottom, okay? The main one here is a credit card percentage. I assume that everybody pays with a credit card, whether they do or not. If you're new to credit cards, the percentage that the credit card company takes and keeps for themselves can vary depending on the credit card company and on certain variables. For example, if I have a credit card in my hand and I swipe it in my swiper, the percentage I have to pay the credit card company is lower than if somebody calls me on the phone and gives me a credit card number, because that means there's less risk. So I took the highest percentage that I could get charged my bank, which is like 3% here, and plugged it in. That way I assumed everybody had a 3%, credit card fee, whether they paid in cash or not. I just left it in there because it's easier. And I have a markup there as well. And I can change the markups. See, I've got different markups on different quantities. I can change those. They're in blue. Everything I can change in here. It's all variable. And that's pretty much it. I mean, it's pretty easy to use if you play with it. The nice thing about this video is you can play this video over and over again and stop before you want to play with something, and go from there. And like I said, I gave this over to David and the folks there at Conde so that you can download it. It's yours to keep. There's no warranty on it. If you don't like it, you don't get your money back because you didn't pay for it to begin with. If you find a mistake in it, let me know. But it's pretty reliable. The formulas are built in. By the way, I don't lock any of the cells. If you delete the formulas accidentally, email me and I'll send it to you again. It's not a problem. Okay? All right. So that's pretty much the first half. Okay? And the first half of the puzzle is, what does it cost to produce? Because everything we talk about with markups is just me plugging in numbers. But what's the right markup? That is a real challenge. Okay? Here we can do a pretty good job of scientifically figuring what it costs to produce something. And, definitely look at the variables. When you're setting up your prices, count. Listen, if I'm doing coasters, how many can I do at one time? Because it's going to get cheaper if I maximize the use of my print area. Okay? How many bookmarks can I do at the same time? How many license plates? I might be able to do 2 of them. Those are the kind of things that are going to actually make you more cost efficient, when you go through this. Okay? So use this to challenge your brain. Okay, probably enough talking from me. But David, I know you probably have a lot of comments because you've got a long history. Not saying you're older or anything, okay? But you got a long history with sublimation, sublimators, production, everything, because you do production yourself. So I'm going to let you weigh in a little bit here while I take a sip of water.
Well, thank you, Jimmy. I would say that knowing your cost, knowing your operating cost is very important. And some of the resources we have here at Conde is our CondeTV.com videos, for instance, helping you determine your ink levels on your printers so that you can, on the long-run job especially, so that you can watch your ink levels and know exactly what it costs for a job. Factoring in your overhead, of course, is incredibly important. So let's start off with how do you determine what to charge? And I think we'll call that whole concept, we'll call it the concept of value. Some people might say it's perceived value. And I think the value starts with 3 factors. I think first it's the product, and then number 2, it's the selling environment, and then number 3, it's the artwork. And those factors combine together to determine what the value is and therefore what the selling price is. Now, once we sort of get a feel for what the value is, you can then sort of go backwards to determine what the markup is. Now, everybody would like say a 600% markup, and that would be good.
That'd be great.
Like 300% markup, maybe. Some expensive products might have only 100% markup and still be acceptable. But after you've done a little bit of work here, you can make what I would call a go, no-go decision on whether or not you carry a product. For instance, a lot of our clients their selling environment is wholesale. They're wholesaling their products, and so there are certain products that just do not have the value to go through a wholesale kind of selling situation. For instance, you might, and if you're not doing this already, pay a visit to the local pet groomer and sell your products through the pet groomer, because obviously pet products are in high demand, and they're really neat. So that's a good business. So you start going backwards to determine if indeed a product is going to make it. Now, just in talking about value in general, I think all of us, unfortunately, have the Walmart mentality is we want it cheap. But in many instances, or most instances, I would say in the personalized products, that's just not going to be true. And in fact, what people are looking for is quality, and they're looking for personalized service, and mostly they're looking for a product that they can be proud of. And if you, as the sublimator, the digital decorator, are looking at your cost and trying to work with the client, I think you can throw off some very peculiar signals. So keep that in mind, is we're not dealing with a Walmart mentality. You're dealing with personalized products. You're dealing with the photo gift industry. So the first is, I think, we'll call it the art of the product. And when it comes to the art of the product, I would say that you can think of sort of three categories, if you will. Number one is you're just a simple cut and paste artist. All you're doing is putting a photograph on a product, and that's going to, in general, be relatively low value. And so it behooves you to try to figure out, okay, how do you add value to something like that? Well, I think it's pretty easy. You can do simple things like on a mug, one side is a photograph, the other is I love my daddy or something. But I think that the real value in artwork comes with your creation of design templates. A template that you can drop in a photograph or something like that, let's say a Father's Day design template. And there's a lot of starving artists out there that you can certainly talk with to help you get those. And then these are templates that you could use forever and add to it for doing special occasions, you name it, add those out there. And that will be a significant way to add value to it, just absolutely significant. So I think it's very important that you pay attention to art on there. Now there's many vertical markets that this is not just a photograph and things like that. People put all sorts of artwork on mugs. You contact a local artist, put there. So there's so many ways that you can add value through artwork. Let's talk about our selling environment. Now, if you're fortunate enough to have a retail establishment, you really have a great way to display your products, to show people what they can make. I recommend, if you've seen my other webinars, I recommend strongly to set up what I would call a photo frame, but it could be an old computer just displaying photographs of products that you've done for other people to give them great ideas about what they want. And so all that goes into establishing what I would say an upscale selling environment, as opposed to maybe a flea market kind of environment. And so the more you're establishing that you're a professional, you're producing quality upscale products, and even do some name dropping with jobs you've done for other people. I think that goes a long way to having a very high perceived value. Going to the product, which I mentioned a little bit before, obviously the good news for sublimation is we have thousands of products, and so there's a lot of things to catch people's interest. And some products are going to have just out of the gate a high perceived value. Other products are going to have a relatively low. For instance, a shirt may have a very low perceived value, just simply because shirts are very common and so forth. So you can increase the value of a shirt by the artwork. For instance, probably the highest perceived value of a shirt is, I've recently done, and I'll shoot the videos on Conde TV tomorrow for this, this is robotics time for me, and I'm a mentor and a sponsor for schools that are involved in robotics competitions. And for the two teams that I sponsor, I did full bleed, all over printing sublimation shirts. These shirts are nothing short of a work of art. They are off the scale. And these would normally sell probably for $60 a piece. And of course, you got to find clients that are willing to pay it, but they're certainly out there. These are works of art kind of stuff, and so stay tuned at Conde TV to see all that. So you can take a shirt, you can add significant value, and really that's going to come down to the artwork in this case. Other products, they have significant value, I think, going out. For instance, a new product that we'll launch maybe today or tomorrow will be our iPhone cases. And these cases, you'll be able to decorate them very easily. Well, for a relatively small sum of money, you can easily sell an iPhone case for $20. So that would provide a nice, healthy markup, because people are saying, hey, it's paid a lot for my phone and so forth. So therefore, you can take their photograph. Now, just to reiterate, if you've probably heard me before, and that is that the number one thing that I recommend the digital decorators do out there is tell people in no uncertain terms that you can take their photographs from their smartphone and put them on any product they see in your showroom or on your website. And so, the mentality of many clients is they're really not sure where to go for that photo gifting products. Can they find someone locally that's producing them? So make sure that you have a clear marketing sales message that you can take their photographs from their iPhones, from their smartphones, and put them on there. And so the smartphones are out there, right there, and Jimmy's got a slide up there showing it, and very exciting thing. Interestingly enough, if you look at this the iPhone there in the middle, the challenges of the iPhone 4 and the 4S, as we found out months ago, even before the launch, they moved the mute button just slightly. So as an engineer, we were paying attention when we were designing our covers for that. But at any rate, what I recommend is once you have an idea of perceived value, that you want to add a couple of things. You want to make sure that you have built into your perceived value what I would call a 20% quantity discount. Somebody comes in, says, what about quantities? So you want to make sure that you've got that room to move. And I think one of the great resources that will educate people on what the perceived values is something we're all familiar with, and that's eBay. And going to eBay and looking at products, I think, will wake you up to the variation that I've just spoken of, and that is you can go look at a group of wedding coasters on eBay and see what they sell for. Look for some coasters that maybe had vintage artwork, things like that, and just see the variation in selling price for the same product. And so the art has an incredible effect on the selling price and therefore the perceived value. But if you want some guidelines, and after the webinar, I'm going to publish a document that's going to show you some just variation in selling price that I've seen for a group of products, and also with a couple of pages of my best commentary on determining value and how you can go about increasing the value. One of the terms that the Cajuns use in Louisiana that you've heard me speak about before is lagniappe, and that is just a little bit more. And that's so important with the value equation. What can you do to add value to a product? And if you watch my videos, I've given you lots of great ideas. I recently cut a video when I did my church's name badges, and when I did them, I decided to try something different. I put the marketing message that you hear me speak of, I put it actually on the back of the name badge. And on the back is our church's goals for this year, which we have 4 goals, actually 5, I think, 5 goals. And I put them on the back so that every time the person is putting on that name badge to head to church, guess what? They're going to see those goals. They're going to be on the back. And you could put on the back your client's message that they'd like to convey to the employee. Smile. Look people in the eye. Whatever it is, you can put on there. And you can also put, on the back your reorder information to help people reorder faster. One of the things is always you want to make reordering as hassle-free. And if you're putting your file name on the back of that name badge, when they do call in, you don't have to ask them 50 questions. And so the value equation, as you well know if you've been to department stores and all that, starts as soon as you walk in the door. And if you have to do a return, or something goes wrong, well, you factor that all into the value equation. And so all that really comes in. One thing to just cover, another thing is what I would call the extreme value equation. And over the years, I've had the privilege and honor to work with thousands and thousands of sublimators. And some of the extreme values, I say, come from wall murals and tile murals and floor murals and things like that. And I'll say that with something like that, it is very difficult to use a cost analysis to determine selling price. It really needs to be done, as Jimmy spoke about, the selling environment, the client itself, whatever. I've had some clients that would tell me stories, for instance, that would say, well, I didn't know what to sell for, and when they asked me what the selling price was, the reaction was, well, the digital decorator would say something like 5, and this funny story was that the client interpreted that as $5,000 per euro, where the digital decorator intended to be 500. So you just never know, some of these murals what they would sell for. So one of my tips and tricks, and my 101 tips and tricks, is if you're not into murals, I think it's a good opportunity because of the incredible perceived value. And what you need to do is find either a public location or a high traffic commercial location, and do whatever it takes to get a mural installed, and use that as your calling card to let people know what you can do. So whether it be at in a lobby of a military installation, which has become a favorite place for the glass floor tile murals, or a restaurant, or some other public building, a library, whatever, get your mural installed. We're always open to help you with understanding the physics of murals, how to go about doing murals. It's a lot of fun. So there are some what I would call extreme values, and that's why when people call here and ask for, what markup should they use, I say work it backwards, and then look at the markup that is left when you've worked it backwards and see if the product is worth your time and effort.
You make such a great point with that, because too many times we get in that rut of 100% markup or 150, and the tile mural is such a great example, because you're talking about something that literally could have 1,000 or more % markup because of the perceived value versus what it actually costs to produce, because they're fairly low cost to produce, but yet people will pay thousands of dollars to have a custom mural wall put into an office. We see a lot of them around here. They're very popular with dolphins and whales and stuff on them, but so that's a good point, because I see some people underprice themselves because they were trying to use a standard markup instead of really realizing, what is this really worth to the customer? You start from that point and then work your way back. Yeah, you got to know what it costs you to produce it, because too many times people don't figure that part in. But it's interesting. I did work for Walmart, dangerous as that is, but I remember Walmart used the same exact thing. They looked at whatever I was selling as to what they thought were reasonable retail price was, and they worked backwards. And I remember walking in, and they told me what they would pay me for something. They didn't ask me what I was charging because they had already done their math. They said that we can sell it for this, and this is what we're going to pay you for it. And it was no negotiation. I mean, that was it. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of things that go into that.
Well, let's take the case of a mug, and now we of course have I don't know, 100 or more different kinds of mugs, from ceramic to plastic to USA and so forth. And you know, what should a mug sell for? Well, you know, if you used some sort of formula like 100, 200, 300%, you would be way off, I think, in what a mug should sell for. I would say most mugs probably sell for in the $14.95 and maybe a little bit more range, but certainly no lower than $9.95 for a photographic, you know, photo on a mug, and go up from there. And so just doing a little bit of thinking and planning about what it should sell will allow you to take the first step, I think, into to get feedback from your clients. For instance, if you're really unsure, you can set a perceived value, or you know, that kind of thing, and then just simply indicate that this is some sort of introductory special, so that you can get feedback from your clients. And I think also you should use the concept of upselling, you know, adding more features to the product, you know, more colors, more this, those kinds of things, and people love upselling. I mean, you know, you have a client, I think we've talked about the challenges of pricing products, but I think you also have the challenges when someone comes into your, let's say you have a retail establishment and they're looking for something. And you know, you have to ask them, well, you know, how much are you willing to spend? I think there's some challenges there with trying to get a price range, something for them. You know, for instance, to my embarrassment, my church recently bought a perpetual plaque, and we were giving out a peace award, which is on our Facebook. That we did the actual plaque for the peace award, but the perpetual plaque was done through a client of ours here in Mobile, and they did a great job. Some of it was engraved, some of it was sublimated, and I asked how much how much we paid for it. We paid $175 for the perpetual plaque, and I asked what the pastor thought about that price, and it was quite interesting how he went through his mindset of, well, that was a good price. The selling point, where he just wrote the check, didn't think of it, he says, well, our client, which was Camellia Trophy here in Mobile, does a great job. Camellia said, you know, this is a perpetual plaque, and there's no charge for the additions, for the additional years. In other words, you're prepaying for each, you know, year's awards, and I think there was room for maybe 15 more years, kind of stuff. And he said, wow, that's just great. You know, here's my check for $175 for the plaque. And so, again, Camellia just carefully, you know, said, well, we can upsell him because we're going to charge as much, because hey, we're going to make this painless for each year, because you don't have to worry about paying. And for a pastor not to have to worry about spending any money in the future was something that was important to him. So,
yeah,
you know, you could go ahead.
Well, yeah, because that's such a great point. I tell people this all the time. You're filling a need, and you need to focus on the needs, not the markups. And this is exactly what you guys or what your client did, because the need defines the importance of the product, and they may be willing to pay a little bit more money to suffice a need, rather than it just being, you know, that Walmart price you were talking about earlier. And that's such a great example of that.
Yeah. So what I'll do, Jimmy, is I assume I'll have everybody's email address from this workshop. We will email you Jimmy's Excel spreadsheet, and we will email you really my 2 pages of what I consider to be my thoughts on sort of how to go about calculating perceived value, which I've already covered in many ways. And the other videos are up there. I recommend you look at them on that kind of thing. I need to add just a few more details, so I'm not going to be able to send it out right this very second. But I have a spreadsheet. It's not a spreadsheet. It's just a little couple of paragraphs that show some of the most popular products and just the range that I have seen over the years of selling price. And again, the range greatly varies by the factors that we've already covered today. But I would say that if you really get stuck and you're stuck with selling a product and you really don't know even where to start with perceived value, give us a call, and your salesperson, myself, my staff, we can certainly point you in the right direction of what we think. But again, a great resource, I think, is eBay, and the reason is because there's so much value differentiation by the selling environment, because some people will group their products together and you'll perceive a high value, but the artwork that's on them, maybe their performance on eBay, and you really get a feel for the variation. You know, you go up there now and you look at, you know, for instance, one of my favorite products is water bottles. There's a lot of people who are interested in water bottles, and if you're not selling water bottles, you probably should be. And what can you put on the water bottle? Well, you know, a tremendous amount. You've got, you know, the whole side of it, you know, around it, and you can customize it for fundraisers, you name it. You can personalize it with a person's name and a logo on the other side. So there's a lot of things that go into a water bottle. I think it can do well for you. So just a lot of products out there, and the best digital decorators will be attuned to the needs of their clients, and then from there try to add value. And you know, one last tip is always make sure that whatever products leave your hands, that it has your calling card on them. So when somebody says, "Wow, where did you get that great, good-looking water bottle?" they can look at the bottom, for instance, and it has your information to have those referrals.
Yeah,
So,
and real quick, because you mentioned this a couple of times, but I put this particular slide up because you know, the artwork really can make such a huge difference. I mean, if somebody at the Hanville Tigers wanted a baseball with just basic lettering, you know, arced above it and below it, it's rather boring. You look at the one on the right. You know, when you generate excitement through the artwork, you raise the perceived value, but it didn't cost you any money. You know, just made you more money. So, you know, you're right when you're talking about the artwork. Just makes such a huge difference in raising that perceived value. As I like to tell people, you need to focus on raising the customer's perceived value to your level rather than you dropping their price down to their level. Therefore, marketing and how you present these products, the unique products, as you guys have a lot of unique products, I got to say, the artwork, everything you talked about goes towards raising the perceived value of the item that from the customer's perspective up to where you need it to be. So why don't we take a few questions? Let me, if you give me just a minute, I'll turn on the question pane. We'll see what we got coming in.
Yeah, while you're looking for the questions, let me add one thing. Today, I'm spending a lot of time in our robotics competition, which is Saturday, and I'm in charge of a lot of little things. And one of the things that I had to order was I had to order some floor vinyl decals, and these are going on the big facility that the competition is going to be held in. And we don't do vinyl here at Conde, and that's just not something we do. So I actually had to outsource it. And the guy came by, and he wouldn't leave until he bought a sublimation system. And you know, I always want to be courteous to everybody, and you know, ultimately I got in with a sales rep, whatever. But he was completely mesmerized by sublimation, and I talked to him a little bit because I always want to know what the strengths and weaknesses of the client are, so that I can coach them and tell them, you know, what they need to work on. And his ability to do artwork was truly off the scale. He was an artist, did vinyl wraps, things like that. And what sold him on sublimation was that he did have a retail section, but his wife very much wanted to get into the Christmas photo gifts, things like that. And I told him, you know, here's what you need to do, but just a great opportunity. And I think that's a lesson for all of us in that we want to make sure we never stay in the mold we're in, that we're always pushing to add new products, to show people fresh things, to expand. And remember, you know, you can make profit two ways. One is to sell more to your existing clients, or number two is go out and find new profitable clients.
Okay, David, we got a couple of questions here waiting for us. The first one is, how do I get or find baseballs that I can die sub? Any thoughts on that?
Well, there's a company called Ballstar, and
yeah.
I believe it may be ballstars.com or Ballstar, and they use a transfer paper and a special heat press to transfer to baseballs. I've not found a reliable way to sublimate to baseballs. And so they have a turnkey system. It's a color laser printer. It's a heat press, and it works well. And so it's a fair amount of money to invest in it, so you better be serious that you're going to sell. But it certainly produces a nice-looking product. So Ballstar would be who I would contact. If anybody out there does know of a good sublimatable baseball, I certainly would be interested. We do have and sell, if you don't know it, our SubliCube, which is a 3D vacuum press. So in theory, if a baseball could be sublimated, we could do it with a 3D press.
Cool. Okay, next question. Are there any good template packages available for a variety of holidays that can be used on a variety of substrates?
I would say that eventually we hope to offer something, but here's what you would do today, and this is a little bit long-winded, so I'll try to be very precise. There is a buying consortium, a club, if you will, and it's called IPI, and it stands for Independent Photo Imagers. Their website is ipiphoto.com, ipiphoto.com. If you join that club, which we're a member of, you can buy for a very small sum of money a complete seasonal, special occasions, design template package for just a few $100s. It's just an incredible bargain. And that would do it right there. The money to join IPI, I think, is $100 a month. So it's quite reasonable. In addition, if you join IPI, we have a program with them to provide an online design website turnkey system right now. And that program is ultimately going to come to non-IPI members, but if you want to get started today, joining IPI will give you two benefits. One is you can buy the design template package, and it was designed by a good friend of mine, Gabby Mullinex, and she is the, we'll call it sublimation queen. And she lives in Fullerton, California, and she has Fullerton Photo, and she's a photo gift boutique. And if you want to visit her website, it's at fullertonphoto.com, I think, fullertonphoto.com, and just amazing young lady. So join IPI at ipiphoto.com, and if anybody needs to email, I can email, you know, contact information with people. And then you're entitled to buy the fully designed template package for a relatively small sum of money, and you can also take advantage of those templates instantly appearing on a photo gift website that is for you. And the photo gift website will be done through another company that is also part of DACA. So IPI Photo does have a great turnkey program for its members, and you can become a member.
Okay, next question. Where can I get car magnets for dye sublimation?
I would say no, and in a couple of reasons. One is really that kind of stuff is best done with a solvent printer. It's very durable outdoors and so forth. The years, and we've tried for many years to do dye sub on vinyl and put it on magnet. I just don't think it's the right thing to do because it will fade. Also, I have a fear that the dye sub, I've seen the dye sub sort of creep through the magnet onto the car. So I would say dye sub is probably not the right technology for that application.
Okay. I get a lot of requests for playing cards. Where can I find cards since Sublistock is discontinued?
Gotcha. The way the photo cards are done today is they're done on a basically a fancy color laser printer, and then they're die cut. And so I'm just not sure of a great resource for sending you to that. HP makes some of those big printers that are really color laser printers. The digital presses is what they call them. So Jimmy, I'm just not sure. If anybody out there knows a great source, I would be interested. I'm not sure of one.
Okay. I think you'll have the answer to this next question, though. When will the iPhone case be available for sale, and is it made of neoprene or hard plastic?
The cases, I suspect the cases, everybody's saying sometime late next week. I'm always a little bit of a pessimist, and I would say probably we're looking at a little bit less than 2 weeks. They are the first out of the gate will be three hard plastic covers. One is white, one is clear, one is black. They will so the covers we've had to source in China because that's the only folks that have them. They will be paired up with a metal insert. The metal insert is U.S. made metal. The Chinese metal that we sampled was a disaster. So we're going with U.S. made metal. So and we're always pushing to buy more product in the U.S. And we'll have 3 flavors of the metal: white, gold, and silver. When we did our test marketing, which a lot of the iPhones will be purchased, of course, by the younger crowd, college campus kind of stuff, we found that some people preferred the gold, silver, and so gives you some creativity with the artwork portion of the value equation. So I think we probably got 2 weeks, and then they'll be shipping.
Okay. Let's see. The tile murals, how well do they hold up to UV fading?
The great question. For an indoor installed mural, there is essentially no noticeable UV levels, and so they are permanent. I would not install a mural in an outdoor environment. I don't think that's a good thing to do. So if you did, you would have 3 challenges really. One is just weather, and blowing rain has debris in it, and it will eat the coating off of a tile. Number 2 is you have heat. Since you put heat in, heat's going to take it out, and you have what's called dye migration. And then you have UV fade, which kills the colors. And so doing it outdoors is not a good idea because a typical client would expect 20 years of life. And so the only technology that I'm aware of that would allow you to do an outdoor mural is ceramic toners or ceramic inks. And you know, you can get on the web and look around. The folks at Bison now, as I understand it, do have an operating ceramic printer. And so if you're familiar with Bison, they're one of our tile coaters. We can give you their information. You're welcome to call Paul Whitehill and talk to him about doing you a ceramic mural for outdoor use. Again, you know, be cautious. Color matching is very challenging on the ceramic inks and toners. Very, very challenging.
Well, while we're talking about UV, we have a question about how long will sublimation last on an aluminum license plate? And in other words, how long should they tell their customer, set an expectation it's going to last a certain period of time? Obviously, a license plate's not a 20-year item.
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's another good reason to make sure on the back of the license plate you put your reorder information. And many years ago, I did go through the flea market journey because I wanted to learn a lot fast, and I did that. Great experience in some ways, burnout in others. But first, you want to start with a license plate that has a good coating. The Unisub Metal and Unisub FRP have an outdoor coating, and you'll notice that it's an outdoor coating by the yellow peel coat. And if you go with other license plates, you'll have a lot less outdoor life. Assuming you're using the yellow peel coat aluminum, then we're down to, okay, what's the exposure, where do they park the car, those kinds of things. So you really can't obviously go over those things with your client because you're going to bore them to tears and they're going to walk off. So typically I'll say you can expect 18 months to 2 years of life. Now, a graphic is going to have a longer perceived life than a photograph. The first color to fade will be magenta, and that will make a photograph have a little bit of a bluish hint to it or tint to it. A graphic will have a much longer perceived life, and so I say 18 to 24 months, depending on exactly the conditions.
Okay. Are there any UV coating products that you can apply to sublimation substrates to allow them longer life outdoors?
Well, after doing this for 20 years, I have some interesting answers, and the answer is those coatings generally cause the product to fade faster, and so the answer is no, and you should avoid doing those top coatings because those coatings tend to act as a lens to actually cause the ink to unsublimate faster, and they cause faster dye migration. So again, we deal with the UV and we deal with heat, and so the coatings that I have tested over the years for extending, the purpose of the coating is to extend outdoor life. They end up doing just the opposite. So the physics of sublimation are not like other things that we do outdoors. They're very much of a strange thing. Now, there are some coatings out there that would help indoors as far as hardness, things like that. So that's a different kinds of things. But in general, I've not found a coating that seemed to balance the UV, extending the UV life with the additional faster dye migration.
Okay. Is it possible to coat my own ceramics to accept substrates? I think they meant sublimation.
Yeah, so, I think the answer is yes, but first the caveat that asking the question of should you coat your own products is a little bit like you're walking to your car to go to work in the morning or whatever, and your neighbor comes over and says, I have the day off, and I've decided to paint my car today. Can you tell me where I can go to buy paint? Well, you would look at them like they were utterly insane. So I think these do-it-yourself sublimation coatings I would avoid for a couple of reasons. But the first reason is that it's challenging to apply coatings or paint for that matter. So here's my quick fix. And this quick fix is for products that are not intended to come in contact with food, or you're not going to put your mouth up against it. So this is not for mugs. This is not for plates. This advice is strictly for things like, say, a tile or let's say a belt buckle, something that you feel like you want to get coated, you want to try it, but it's definitely off the beaten path. And that is, take the product to your best paint and body shop and ask them to apply their best clear coat to the product. That clear coat that's used on cars has millions of dollars worth of R&D and technology in it, and it actually sublimates very well. So that would be the quick fix to go try things. Now, in the case of a glazed tile, what that means is that glazed tile has a glass coating on there. So the challenge of getting a coating to stick to glass is somewhat challenging. But you're welcome to head to your favorite paint and body shop, get them to spray a clear coat on there, and in many cases that will work quite well. I strongly recommend that people not go out there on the internet and buy these sublimation coatings, because one thing, I think it's a lawsuit worth waiting to happen, because you're asked to put stuff in your oven and bake it, and how hazardous they are is not clear to me. And so I would just tell you not to go into the do-it-yourself coatings, but to rely on something like an automotive clear coat, which actually works quite well and is going to be applied in an environment that's controlled and by someone that knows what they're doing.
Okay, I think that's excellent advice. 100% agreement with you on that. Okay, running a little long here, so we're going to take one or two more questions. By the way, if we don't get your questions, because there's some good ones here, you have our emails on the screen, and feel free to email us, and we'll get back to you with some answers. Okay, one last question here: are the sublimated tables that you presented on Conde TV available for sale yet?
It's another good question, and we get busy or whatever, and I need to go check and just see how close they are with being available. I'm not positive that the part numbers are in our system and ready to go. You can contact your sales rep. That's a print services product, and our print services is, if you're not taking advantage of that, it's a great resource because of the massive amount of equipment we have here at Conde. So it's a good resource if you need something big, or if you need lots of something that's overwhelming to you. But I will go find out. Indeed, I love the tables, by the way, and they're very close to where I'm sitting now, and they're really nice. So I will go get you an answer.
Okay, well, I think we're going to close the questions there. Again, you can feel free to contact us for additional questions and answers. One thing, too, I've been reading some of your feedback, and I know that there were a few little technical problems going on with the webinar today. It had nothing to do with Conde. It had nothing to do with Sawgrass. It was really the company that provides the webinar platform. But I do know there was a few things going on with both audio and a little bit with video. So my apologies for that, but it was beyond our control. But it appears that everybody was able to hang on and get through some of these glitches. So
Jimmy, what I'm going to do is, with everybody's email address, we'll email them the calculator plus our little some of my thoughts. But again, the Conde TV is a great resource, because I'll get up there and preach about a particular tip. Also, another comment is I really need everyone's feedback about what videos they'd like to see. What would you like to focus on? Because we're always looking for new angles. In fact, I'd like some volunteers of folks maybe I could interview on Conde TV to talk about what you've done that's been successful. I think there's more and more clients will call up and ask, okay, here's what I did to be successful. Here's some things. Maybe you don't tell us all your secrets, of course, but you would give us a few details about what works for you. And I'll tell you this, over the years, I've had a lot of people tell me their secrets, but with the caveat that I keep it to myself until it's, of course, obvious that it's a public kind of domain kind of secret. So lots of great ideas out there, and please welcome your feedback about how we can do better and to serve you more.
Okay, well, with that said, I think we'll go ahead and wrap up. And David, I appreciate having the opportunity to do a webinar again with you. Always look forward to that. I always learn something every time I'm around you. You're just a wonderful resource. So it was great to spend time with you this afternoon.
Well, same here, Jimmy. Thank you for putting all this together for us. And again, thank you, the listeners and viewers out there, for your support.
Okay, well, we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Take care.